Thank you for joining me today. And it's Sunday. I know like you're a very busy person and you've got a lot of stuff going on, which I also want to leave some time for us to talk about. But just to give you a little bit of background, so my name is James. I live in Connecticut with my wife, and we have two children. We've had three pregnancies, two children survived. Our first child, unfortunately, developed a condition called lower urinary tract obstruction,
Okay.
and that ultimately led to him not living past the 19th week. And once we lost him, we did a lot of different changes in how we eat and how we're living our lifestyle, etc. And we even decided to have a home birth for the next two children. And with going through that whole journey, it made me want to educate, and even me going through the postpartum, what I realized is there's not a lot of like information for dads. And I feel like also there's a lot of unspoken expectations of fathers where it's like nobody knows specifically where to bring the communication point up. And I'm starting this podcast as a way for me to help bridge a lot of gaps and proactively answer a lot of questions or give food for thought for where fathers or dads or partners should be while the mother is, in the pre-pregnancy stage, the post-pregnancy stage, and even in the postpartum stage. So really, I'm just here to help be an advocate and build a community of where dads are looking for some sort of assistance or don't have the answers. Like, here you go.
Right.
And I wanted to do this like series with you where we go through the different milestones of the pregnancy. So on today's show, I wanted to talk about the first trimester. So like that first trimester is interesting. And I'll say this from a father's perspective, you know, you get the surprise pregnancy test. It's like your partner says, "Woo, we made it, we're pregnant." And it's like, okay, as a dad, what's next? But even like for the women, do enough women know what the first step is when it comes to, you're pregnant? Is that like a common thing? Like, do you know to immediately go see your doctor? Like, what
No.
happens and what should you do?
Well, first, okay, so you were mentioning about the dad's role, right? And so I think of this as like a family unit. So, it's the wife, it's the father, if there are other children that's already, there, whether it is their children together or from previous, relationships, so on and so forth, right? So I say it starts with faith. Okay.
Mm,
So it starts with faith. And, I believe that the man is in the leader role. He's the head of his family. And when the man has a relationship with God and he's praying for his family, they pray together, things like that. That's where it all starts. So, faith. Then on top of that, when it comes to the pregnancy, you were asking me about the first trimester. Do most
yes.
people know what to do? Most people do not know they're pregnant until maybe they're towards the second trimester. So that's
Wow.
for most people. So it is important. Education is so, so important. I think that if you are a couple and you're planning to have a baby or to get pregnant, one of the things that is important to do is like an early pregnancy visit, or a preconception visit where you go and you talk about like what your wishes are, desires are. You'll talk about if there's any family history when it comes to genetic disorders, things like that.
Mhm.
We go over your health, if there's any medical problems, and then how to counter those things to help to ensure you have a healthy pregnancy in the future. So that's
Okay.
that's that's one of the things we start with. Midwives, we are experts when it comes to low risk pregnancies, and midwives in the United States are mostly in the hospital settings. Rarely you will find a midwife at home to be in the home setting. That's a big change from years ago. And so a lot of guidelines were set in place and regulations, but that's another subject.
Okay.
Yes,
So,
another.
question for you. can you explain? So so glad, and I thank you for touching on the midwife, right? So you mentioned, well, there's two things before we get too far. You said number one, most people don't know they're pregnant until you're close to the second trimester.
Yeah, I say most people,
Okay.
because you have people who are maybe not trying to get pregnant.
Mm,
Some people, let's say they're taking birth control pills. And one thing about birth control pills, if you are, for some reason, you're taking an antibiotic, for whatever illness, that antibiotic is going to reduce the effectiveness of the pills, of the birth control pills. So when
oh,
you have some people say, oh, I got pregnant while I was taking birth control, well, it was probably because, one of the things you could have been taking an antibiotic or some other medication that decreased the effectiveness of that pill, and then you get pregnant, right?
I did not know that. You just dropped a huge gem because I know okay, so I may just jump in here and there just to add some context or add follow-up questions. I hope that's okay. Just because sometimes there's some things you're saying that are like, "Ooh, that was strong." As a male or as a man, when your partner tells you they're on birth control, it's a peace of mind and it becomes out of sight, out of mind type of thing where you're just okay, they said they're on birth control. I'm not worried.
Right.
So, where we need to be cognizant of as men, even especially for us not planning on getting pregnant,
Yeah.
is if your partner is taking a medication or is taking birth control, there is a chance that it can reduce the effectiveness of the birth control.
Yes.
Nugget. Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah. And so the thing is, a lot of people, the most vital aspects of the first trimester, right? Like by the time the baby's heart is beating into the stage for like neurotube development, where if, genetic disorders, things like that, that by the time a lot of people know they're pregnant, those things could have already taken place. Okay. Just like, one of the things, and I don't know when you mentioned about nuggets, ibuprofen, right? Or some people don't know ibuprofen and Motrin is the same thing, right? Or Advil, it's a NSAID. So during the first trimester, it's recommended, well, at any trimester really, not to take an NSAID or more so Motrin, ibuprofen, because it can do harm to the baby's development, whether it's the heart or the abdomen. So think about how many people might not know that they're pregnant and they have
Oh,
pain for whatever reason and they take ibuprofen or Motrin, and it is a risk to the pregnancy that they don't even know exists yet. Yeah, it's a lot. So
that
that's why it's important, if it's a first time pregnancy, I'm gonna say two things. If it's a first time pregnancy, it's important to have a conversation, whether it's a midwife, nurse practitioner, a doctor. You'll go in and you'll have an early pregnancy visit to talk about preparing for the pregnancy, right? And when you talk about preparing for the pregnancy, again, you're going over um, medical history, things like that, family history, carrier screenings, things like cystic fibrosis, for example, or sickle cell for when it comes to persons of color, where persons can decide if they want to do any screening prior to, and then with that screening, they can determine if they even want to move forward with pregnancy. Then let's see, if you have, let's say, if you've already had a pregnancy, right? And you decide to get pregnant, depending upon the pregnancy or the care that you've had in previous pregnancies, I come across people who have maybe had a pregnancy or two, and I share information with them that they've never heard before. So even if it's not your first pregnancy, it still might be a good thing to go to an early pregnancy visit just to have a discussion. If you feel like you may have been missing bits of information from previous pregnancies or pregnancy management, should I say. Yeah. So,
that's interesting. Like, for my wife and I, for our second pregnancy and even our third, like, we never did we did do the pre-pregnancy screen, but that happened just because she went to go see her doctor, and we had just got married, so, like, these questions started to come up, and
Good,
then she made the recommendation.
good.
And I think they checked my wife for a lot of these markers and then didn't find anything, so they didn't even bother with me. But then our first pregnancy, our son developed ludo, which we don't know if it's genetics or if it's we have no idea. So that's another pursuit I'm after. But can you also describe the role? Like, what is a midwife for? Because you mentioned the midwife, and I've had a midwife, but a lot of us don't know what a midwife is, what he or she does, like where they stand in the
Right.
org chart of healthcare.
So, I get this question a lot too because a lot of people do not know what a midwife is or the role of a midwife. That's in the United States. Now, in
Hmm.
other countries, we are known for what we do. The simplest way that I tell people right off the jump what a midwife is, and they say, because when I've tried to tell them other ways, they're like, huh? So I will say it like this. A midwife is if a nurse practitioner that cares only for women from the age of 12 through the elderly, um, that also delivers babies, or a nurse practitioner, a OBGYN nurse practitioner.
Okay.
So
So
we
that's
we only care for women of age 12 and
yep,
up.
yeah.
We are specialized experts when it comes to low risk pregnancies and deliveries, but also we see patients for GYN. If there's GYN issues, low risk, I'm sorry, low risk issues. If there's anything high risk, it all depends on the level of that particular midwife. But usually when it comes to high risk, then we'll consult with a doctor.
Mm,
So GYN, contraception, we can do some things like IUDs, intrauterine devices for preventing pregnancies. Some of us can assist in a C-section. Myself, hey. Um,
mm.
so the doctor actually performs the C-section, but the midwife can assist if she has that skill set. I like that because if I'm available to go into the OR, I can go into the OR as a support person for that patient, or I can go to the OR to assist the doctor. And if I'm assisting a doctor, I'm actually right there and knowing what took place. And so when I see that patient postpartum, I literally was involved with the surgery and was can literally know what's going on with you right now, you know? But yeah, so it's pretty broad. It's pretty broad scope of
That's a
things.
pretty broad.
Yes,
Yeah, that's a
yes,
lot.
yes. When
Now
it
do
comes to
all
pregnancy, because midwives, we're hands-on. Like, we have to know how to, without an ultrasound, can feel your abdomen, the lady's abdomen, can project like how the baby's positioned, when she's term, estimating how big the baby is, when it's time for delivery, helping her to maneuver through different positions to get the baby to rotate and come down appropriately and then have a successful vaginal delivery. Now, in some instances, that, like if the baby's too big to come out vaginally, of course, then that ends up in a C-section. Yeah. So, but yeah, but it's
gotcha.
it's it's pretty broad. We do a lot.
So you're like a Swiss Army knife, like, you can literally do everything. And when it comes to the pregnancy journey, like, how when do you really start to come in, like, into that journey? Like, are you there from the beginning, or are you there at the end? And then well, actually, excuse me, let me ask another question first. I apologize. Do all hospitals have a midwife? Or is that like a regional thing or
No,
a localized thing?
no, all hospitals do not. As to the locations of most midwives, I mean, I think I couldn't tell you. I mean, I think there's a lot of midwives more so in the West, of the states, but I think it's kinda hit or miss if you are able to get a midwife. There's some regions might have more than others. Yeah. And then as far
Okay.
as, Black midwives, I think you saw my post where
Yeah.
we are a few of color. Well, when I
Yeah.
say that percentage, at like 5, I think it's 5% or something like that. It used to be less than 1%, probably about 7
Wow.
years ago. But that's midwives of color, meaning Black, Hispanic,
Mhm.
Chinese, Indian. So if if they were to do a pool for just Black, I don't know, we might be at 1%. And the thing
Okay.
is, of course, because of the maternal infant mortality, morbidity rates here in the US, um, persons of color really wanna see someone that looks like them, and there's
Yeah.
just not enough of us. So, um
Yeah. Yeah. It's brutal. And thank you for sharing that. First, to go back to your point about, like, there's a lack of representation. I know even from firsthand, my wife wanted someone who looked like her, and I think most people want because I think there is also a physical alignment there, and with the whole mortality rate thing, I there was a special on Hulu about these women who, had to go in for a C-section. I don't know if you saw it, and then they passed away. Now they kinda interviewed their husbands and things like that. Did you see that?
yeah, you about a few years ago, right?
I think it was a few years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
I just recently saw it with my wife, and, like, when you I'm bringing this up because you brought up the mortality rate, and you can feel free not if you can't answer, that's totally fair, but, like, do you know if it's, care related, or is it, like, a bunch of different variables that are impacting women of color than other groups? Is
Yeah,
it
so, well, in the US, because it's different depending upon where you're at, right? Now with my nonprofit foundation, our goal is to help reduce maternal infant mortality, morbidity globally, and starting in Ghana, and then the DR. So those locations are different because they are countries that are mostly of color or all color, right? So their issue would be like access to health, medical supplies, resources, training, things like that. But in the
Mhm,
US, we have the resources, we have the access, but it goes to that systemic racism. So
mm,
it could be a Black woman or a person of color just not being heard. Like, for example,
mm,
a couple of months ago, I think this was back in November, where they had all over social media that one young lady that was in the wheelchair in the triage area, and she was obviously in labor, but the RN next to her was really not paying her attention,
mhm.
just kept looking at the computer, asking some questions instead of getting this lady back so that she can be assessed and taken care of. Do you remember that? Did you see that?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Okay, okay. So a lot of times women of color here in the States are not heard, or not believed. Like if they say my pain is I'm having bad pain, I need some medicine, they might not get that medicine or it might be a delay of that medicine. Also, when it comes to access to health. So most persons of color in the US or a lot of us are in like lower income areas. Well, the best healthcare systems are not in those areas, right? Yeah, so they're not in those areas, and in those areas, they might have a hospital that has labor and delivery, and they might not. So if they don't have a hospital with labor and delivery, then they have to travel like an hour or so. So do
Oh
they
my
have that
gosh.
transportation to even get there? When it comes to having, lower income, do you have the, access to get healthy food items? For mom and the baby, right? After the baby's
Mhm,
born, is she gonna be breastfeeding? Will there be breastfeeding issues? Is there someone that can help her with that so that she can continue to breastfeed to give this baby the best that she can? Or does she need to switch to formula, right? Can she afford that formula? Is the baby going to be malnourished? I mean, it's like a plethora of things.
You gotta fight through a lot.
It's a lot. It is a lot. Um, but yeah, in the
I
US, it's mostly the umbrella of it all is systemic racism. And it's
mm,
something that's been coming to light for a while now, for the last few years. And so
okay.
some institutions are, teaching it. For example, in the colleges that, midwives go to become midwives, right? Or nursing students. Years ago or a few years ago, it was in the literature that Black people have high pain tolerance. This is what was taught.
So they were teaching it,
They were
telling
teaching
intentionally
it.
telling you.
They were
Oh
teaching
my
it. It
gosh.
was, like, in the books, right? Like, even when I went to school, it was in the books, right? So
My god.
yes, but now from what I understand, it's been removed, and they are, being more, conscious about the systemic racism when it comes to persons of color and healthcare, and they're doing or trying to do better jobs, so
Mm, that is wild. I can't believe they were into and how long ago did they start removing this? Or altering it?
I don't know exactly, I would have to take a guess, maybe 5 years ago,
Just 5 years ago.
maybe 5 years ago.
Even anything less under like, even if it was only 10 years ago, that's still pretty darn recent that we've been educating the wrong thing.
Right, it
That's
is.
crazy. What if this is all, like, science related, how I would love to understand the science behind how was that decision made? Or did you say, like, "Well, because they don't complain, they must be able to tolerate the pain," or,
No,
like
this goes way back to slavery. This goes yeah, there are, like, names of certain procedures, there's names of certain instruments used because back with slavery and even, after, Black women have gone through it. Black women have gone through it. Men have as well, but, they used to test things on women of
Mhm,
color, no pain, no anesthesia, all right? And yeah, and so they just this is just what the we have a high pain tolerance or we have no pain or whatever, and these different things were done. So this goes way back. From my understanding, they're trying to change some names of some, like, medical terms. And, I don't know about the instruments, but some of the medical terms, assessment names, things like that, that were used or named after white men who used Black women as guinea pigs, who was used as guinea pigs for medical research. And
mhm.
then for whatever it was that they came up with, like Chadwick sign or something like that, they it was named after them, just like with the military installation, how they've been named. So,
Mhm, mhm.
yeah.
So it's safe to say that in the fabric of healthcare, we have interwoven since some systemic racism into the very fabric of healthcare, and now we're on this path to go through that same fabric and start pulling out the racism, or there's at least an attempt to, or we're
Right, an
trying to
attempt
progress in
to,
that
yeah.
direction. That is something I did not know. I'm getting so many nuggets right now. I mean, I did not know. I guess I understood there was some level of racism in healthcare, but I didn't understand how to quantify it and how to even identify it. And like you're kind of giving some areas of where it at least started and something that you should be aware of through the pregnancy journey, and understand like, where you live has an impact, what you're doing has an impact. And that actually brings me to my next point here, which someone else who I did a podcast on, he's also a father, and he also his the reason we connected is because both of our sons were impacted by Ludo. So we were kind of having a conversation about it, and he was telling me how after that experience, he went on this very strict diet, and we were talking about how men's sperm cells can be impacted by what you are eating. So, like
Yeah,
myself, and I'm sure a lot of guys out there, we that's news, right? Like you just think that if you have sperm, you're good to go. Like it's like if you have sperm, you're good to go. There's no deformities in the sperm. That is not known. Let alone did I not think me eating McDonald's could potentially have an impact
yeah,
on creating some potential birth defects.
yeah. Yeah, well, even with the food, I mean, just think about, you know, what we're eating. I mean, most
Hmm.
of the times we don't know what we're eating unless we grow it ourselves, you know?
Hmm.
If it doesn't have seeds, if it doesn't have bones, you might wanna think about it.
Well, that's a good way to look at it. If it doesn't have seeds or bones, then you may want to consider what you're eating.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. And what type of things behavior wise can men expect from their partner or the mother, like, during that first trimester? Is there a lot of changes in behavior in the first trimester? Like, is there, like, something that will look very different or we should at least have an awareness of, like, if you were talking to, a friend and say, "Okay, your wife's pregnant," and you had to be, like, very honest about, like, what behavior changes you could see. Are they any in the first trimester, or does that happen later down the line?
So not in the first trimester, not really. Behavior in the first trimester just depends upon, the pregnancy itself, if it was a pregnancy, a wanted pregnancy or not. Um If it's a unplanned pregnancy, there can be a lot of anxiety there just because it was unplanned, but not because of hormone changes. Most women, if they have behavior changes or if they're going towards the route of like depression or anxiety, it would occur as they're getting closer towards the end of the pregnancy. So, unless they have a history of anxiety, depression, then, we want to kind of look out for it in the beginning and then mostly towards the tail end. It's good to do like an assessment of women in the first trimester. It is like a anxiety and postpartum scale that we have women to fill out just to see if they're at the current stage, are they at risk? It gets a baseline, and then if they have any mood changes or they start to feel anything leading towards the other trimesters, then they talk to us about it and we reassess at that time. So
Okay.
I would say, yeah, if it's planned and you're happy, everybody's just happy. It's good.
Everybody's having cool. Cool. And going back to now, like in the doctor visits, okay, I'm going to see as a midwife, I would probably when I start these doctor visits in that first trimester, I'm probably going to see you plus the doctor. Is that fair to say? Or I'm gonna at least meet you once or no?
So it depends on like the practice. So, you have private practices, you have businesses that are under like corporations, right? And then you have midwives that are in the home. So if let's say you're going to a practice, like, if you see me, you can just see me throughout
Oh,
your
okay.
whole pregnancy. You don't have to see a doctor. And if you are like a high risk person, then at some point you're going to see a doctor. And that depends on your, medical history and the pregnancy, if it's a high risk pregnancy, low risk pregnancy. Yeah. So,
Oh,
but you wouldn't see like, because I'm your provider. I'm your provider. So like, I can diagnose you and give prescriptions and things just like a doctor does.
oh, that's
Again,
beautiful.
like a nurse practitioner. So I'm a nurse practitioner, but I
Yeah.
deliver babies as well.
So why like in so many cases, like to be honest with you, like if I'm going through this journey again, I'm wanting to see you, not the doctor. Like, why would I want to see I would much rather have someone who specializes in just women only. And as long as and you can tell me if something's good, something's bad, something's wrong. Like, we might as well just keep it going.
Right.
Like, I don't see why. You even see the doctor unless, like you said, something is wrong or there's a high risk somewhere or something
Right,
like that.
right, yeah, yeah, if there's something high risk going on, then yes, a midwife can consult with the doctor, if it is a midwife-led practice, because you have birthing centers where there are midwives, okay, and depending upon what state you're in, a might, have a doctor, like a supervising physician, or she might not, like, the laws changed in North Carolina. I don't know, probably like 4 years ago where, if you're in North Carolina, you don't need a supervising physician. Most states in the West, you don't need a supervising physician. If you do need a supervising physician, then, that's fine too. If you go to a birthing center, you'll just see midwives if you're low risk. But then if once you become high risk at that point, you have to transfer to somewhere that actually has a doctor so the doctor can also see the patient.
Okay. That's super good to know. And in my case, so our first son, so when we saw, I guess the nurse that we saw probably was not a midwife. In my case, when we went in for our scan and the nurse had saw something on the screen, but she couldn't really talk to us about it. And the doctor happened to be out of town at the time. So the doctor didn't, let's say we had the visit on Friday, doctor called us on Monday with the news of like, hey, what's going on?
Okay.
So
So there was an
with the mid,
oceanographer. The one that did the
sorry,
ultrasound, that would not have been a nurse, it would have been an oceanographer.
okay. So again, that's a whole different position itself.
Mhm.
So she cannot diagnose.
Right.
She can only just scan. Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
And then you guys the doctor you said called you?
Yep, doctor called me on, I guess she talked to him. He called us on Monday and told us, "Hey, I need to see you ASAP." So then
Okay.
that's when things kind of progressed and so let's say I guess at 12 weeks with Ludo, I guess that's when the kidney function starts to happen, the baby's starting to urinate to, I think there's like a transition. And then if the baby's not able to urinate, then the sac is going to lose its fluid. So he called us, told us the news. We had to go see several specialists. I'm in Connecticut, by the way. So I went to Yale, New Haven to see a specialist. And when we went to go see them, the doctor, I mean, and Ludo is so, it's not, it's, I guess it's very rare. So it's not a whole lot of data and information about it. But we went to go see the specialist in Yale, New Haven. She's told us that the Ludo is actually pushing up on his organs, and it's causing, a heart condition called, oh, what's the heart condition? Um, it was putting pressure on his heart. I forgot what the heart condition was, and that he only has about 2 weeks to make it. And, like, we took that news, it was super devastating,
Yeah.
but then we decided to go to CHOPS in Philadelphia, and they actually it's a children's hospital, and they specialize in putting a shunt in in the baby to relieve the bladder so that it's not impacting the kidneys. When we went there, this was the hard part. In order for them to do this shunt procedure, you have to be at 21 weeks. I think it's 21 weeks because if they have to puncture the sac too early, if they do it too early, the baby could basically come out. So they had to wait, and I guess until this other fluid kind of came over the sac to help protect it from like a
Yeah.
puncture. The problem is you're kind of moving fastly towards like a really big access because on one hand, they're telling us the baby won't live another 2 weeks. On the other hand, in Connecticut, if you want to do some sort of birthing intervention or abortion, I think you cannot do it beyond 20 weeks. I think it's either
Mm,
19 or 20 weeks.
okay.
But now we're only sitting here at week 17 with our baby still with a full heartbeat.
Wow.
So now you've got all these points kind of meeting together, and it's like you gotta figure out what you want to do.
Yeah.
You know what we did do? The first thing you just told me
Yeah.
was we had to have faith. So with all this news, now to top it off, the doctor said even if the baby does survive, he's going to have a poor quality of life. But as a parent, I guess that is not enough to make me want to decide on life at that point because even though you're telling me he's going to have a poor quality of life, I have so much more. belief in me and upside in me that I can't we're making the decision way too early. So I said, "Okay, I'm gonna do this." We came back to Philadelphia. I was hoping we were gonna be down there for a week to do procedures and whatnot, and then we were back to square one, it feels like. We are home with a child who is, potentially dying inside the womb, and every day that goes by, the clock is racing against us. We came back, doctor wanted to see us again, says, "The heartbeat is still going strong, still good heartbeat." And I remember I was like, "Let me say a prayer." I was thinking about saying a prayer. I was like, "Maybe, like, the tissue will just flap down and the bladder will clear out and, like, it's all good." I think I was for that.
Yeah.
And then that did not happen. And I was like, "Maybe if you just get him a little bit bigger, it'll just, like, fly like, he'll just fly out." So, doctor wanted to start talking about a DNC at this point, and he's like he was really like, "Do you guys wanna go ahead and schedule it?" And it's like, it's really no, I don't. I cannot.
No.
I just how can I don't have any indication that it's the fight is over. Your guys are telling me to throw in the white flag
Yeah.
because you feel like, "Hey, I know the inevitable." But if that car is still going, baby, why am I gonna stop it?
Yeah.
So we now we're this is around Mother's Day weekend to top us off. So we we come home and I say, "You know what we're gonna do? We have an appointment that Friday." So this is a Friday before Mother's Day. He wants us to do a scan. I said, "What we'll do is I'm gonna do a fast this week.
Okay.
I'm gonna do a fast and I'm gonna pray.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask for 2 things. I'm gonna ask God to either deliver this baby full term, healthy, or take him.
Okay.
That way, I don't have to make a
That's
decision.
right.
That way, I'm completely fine whatever the
That's
outcome
right.
is because I know there was divine intervention." So, I'm like, I'm gonna give it all to God
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
at the end of the day,
Yes.
if he makes it then God wanted this boy to live.
That's right.
If he's gonna keep going
Amen.
beyond
That's
21 weeks,
right. Yes.
we're not walking towards no DNC, we're not walking towards any of that. But
Mhm.
if he goes now, God would have saved us from having to be the ones to make the decision,
That's
and
right.
we left it up.
Yeah, because then you would have been left with guilt.
Yeah. So we went, I prayed, fasted. I was really hoping for a different outcome.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I was also spiritually attacked that week too because we went out to dinner. So we had I broke fast that Thursday. I said, "We're gonna go out to dinner because I'm breaking fast for the last time this week."
Okay.
We went out to dinner that Thursday, and I'm fasting and I'm not drinking any liquor or anything like that. I go out there. The restaurant we went to is like they have free Patron everywhere. I'm like, "Wow, okay, see, like I see, like come on now." And I love my son because I am not breaking my fast for nobody. I don't care what the temptation looks like. So
Huh. Good.
we went to the doctor the next day, and that's when we found out he did pass.
Mm.
As sad as it was to lose our son, we felt so peaceful and so
Yeah.
joyful to know
Yeah.
that God answered our prayers, and we had a reassurance that he was with God. That doesn't replace the hurt, but it gives you I mean, to walk away with something
Yeah.
like that, it feels so much better. So it's now Friday, we find out that our son has passed, and it's Mother's Day weekend. So that was a really, really rough Mother's Day weekend. We pretty much just stayed in the bed and just
Mhm.
ate Chinese food and just, you know, just bed rot for that. And then we had the appointment on Monday. By far the toughest Mother's Day I've ever had. By far, probably one of the toughest experiences I've ever had to go through, which is what has fueled me to want to go and do something like this because going through that experience, there's so much I wish I had known
Mhm.
that I didn't know.
Yeah.
I wish I was able to also, one thing I didn't get a chance to see my son.
Mm.
They did not let us see him at all, and they were just persuading us to just focus on ourselves right now and the future, and it was like, man, I didn't get that final closure. So I don't know what the practices or the policies are if you are allowed to see baby, but in my case, I wasn't, so I would definitely, tell fathers to, if you have to go down that route before they do anything, if you can, you should ask the question, "Am I allowed to see my child?"
Yeah.
Before you do anything with them, so I can properly say goodbye. And I think too, from that experience, because we were dealing solely with a doctor at the time, we didn't have a midwife, we didn't have someone like you who maybe could give things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And especially as talking to another woman of color. So that's when I started to go on the journey with my wife to look into, hey, doing a home birth, having a midwife come here and, and she do it. And then we have a doula. And start, also educating other women on their options when it comes to maternity care, right? Also educating women on like educating women by way of man, like basically getting message out there to man so that they can
Mhm.
sit down, or at least when he has to have the conversation with his partner,
Yeah.
they're both coming to the table informed. It's not
Yeah.
just, well, this is what I think we should do.
Right.
So that's a little bit about my previous history. But the last two babies were born at home, both healthy. We had an amazing midwife, and she did a pretty good job. No complications, and I when I was first told about a midwife, I was like, is that? Like, you do have there's a perception. It's like you think of like Granny, and then
Right.
coming here with
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
blanket and some tools, and like I'm like, what do you mean you're gonna have a midwife come here? And I was, very worried, but, like, going through this and you even educating me on, like, "Listen, like, I can go even to as far as, prescribing and diagnosing." Like, I didn't that adds another level to it, so super, thankful for the conversation today, and would you have any other suggestions for the dad or expecting father, as far as, like, things that you should do or consider in that first trimester?
I mean, just be present, you know,
Mm,
conversations, pray together. And I mean, prayer's the number one thing right there. And just pay attention to her and go to the appointments. Um,
okay.
a lot of times dads are only going to the appointments if it's like to see it for an ultrasound
Yeah.
or if it's some I don't know, some particular test that might be done. But each of those visits are important because depending upon what stage she's at in the pregnancy, he's certain things he needs to hear. A lot of times when I'm talking to a patient and I might ask her a question or two, but I'll look straight to the dad because if it's a dad that's involved and paying attention, he's gonna tell me before she will, you know? Just like I push hydration. Hydration is very important. A woman should get about 3 liters of water a day. And so, the dads are like, okay, making sure that she's getting her exercising and go out there and walk with her, help her stretch. You stretch with her, hydrate with her. It's you guys together. So you should be moving and grooving and doing all these things together,
Got you.
going to the pregnancy classes, all of that. Yeah.
So we're equally pregnant is what you're saying. I mean, like,
Yeah, yeah,
we're
you
doing
are.
all of the
Because
pregnancy. Yeah.
even when the woman is pushing, the dad is pushing too. We're all pushing. She's pushing, and we're, like, holding our breath and pushing right with her, you know? But,
Mm,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, just be present, see what the needs are, and, just be right there and let her know you're there. So, yeah.
see, I will say, like, thank you for, again, those nuggets, right? Because I felt like, "Oh, no, she's talking about me," because I only went to the ultrasound ones or the ones where it's like, "Okay, am I gonna see something cool today?" I feel like yes, we have done that, like, but now I understand it from a different angle where it's just about more so supporting your partner, not just being there for like, show me the trophies.
Right.
And then being present too.
Yeah.
Again, I think sometimes, that's an area to consider and to work on as dads is how to be present because there is a lot going on too. But that's something that, I think we should all take away and just continue to keep those things in mind when we are going on this journey in the first trimester.
Yes.
Anything else?
Not that I can think of, not for the first trimester.
Okay. Well, Stephanie, I thank you so much for hanging out with me today, educating me on the first trimester, educating me on midwifery,
Yeah.
and educating us on oh, sorry, before we leave, can you just tell us about the what you were doing in Ghana and Dominican Republic?
Okay. Well, so I have formed a nonprofit organization. It is called Stephanie Akua Global Midwife Foundation. And this started after, well, let me say 10 years back. I had received word from God that I was going to go to Africa and deliver babies. So at that time, I did not have a desire to do that. And I was like, okay, well, certain things took place in my life to actually prepare me for that. So I went. When I went, you know how sometimes you might want to do one thing, but you end up doing something else, or you end up in another place. You're supposed to went to point A, but you end up going to point B. You're like, why am I here? I'm supposed to be in A, this and that. Well, that's what happened when I went to Ghana. The place I was supposed to have went to, I was not. I was somewhere else, and the place I ended up being was the actual place God wanted me to be, because that's when he linked me up with certain other individuals, networking, things like that. I got to see where there was great need, and when it comes to labor and delivery, and I have a big heart. So from there, I was just led to form this foundation now. With the foundation, reducing maternal infant mortality morbidity, because in most countries that are like lower income, that's where the highest mortality rates are. Low income areas, the Sahara, that's going to be like, as far as Africa is concerned, Sahara area, Sudan, those areas are going to have like the highest rates. So in Ghana, looking at C-section rates, reducing those, bringing volunteers to Ghana to help out with doing teaching and education when it comes to what we call spinning babies,
Mhm.
helping the baby to come down to deliver vaginally, showing them different birth positions, teaching about postpartum preeclampsia, infection, postpartum infections, neonatal sepsis. I am also, or we are also, like bringing supplies or sending supplies to Ghana as far as medical supplies that are needed. When I went there the first time, they did not have access to Dopplers, which Dopplers are used to listen to the baby's heartbeat. So they had what was, it's not a fetoscope. It's another little instrument. I can't remember the name of it.
Is there like a look like a stethoscope with like a little
No,
horn
that's a
on it?
fetoscope. This is something else. It looks like a little cone. On my website,
Okay.
midwifevolunteer.org, there is a picture of a midwife. She has cornrows on her hair. She has on a green uniform, and she has this little cone thing that's like to the abdomen. That's what they would use to listen to the baby's heartbeat. But
Oh, wow.
it's very faint and it's not as sensitive. Plus, the mother cannot hear the heartbeat. It's not
But
as
how can you tell the
reliable, but that's what they
Got you.
had. So my first thing was I wanna bring Dopplers back to you, right? I wanna send Dopplers and things like that. Um, um, so anyway, so started doing that. Then when I went to Ghana in '25, I went by myself, and I took a lot of supplies, and I brought a lot of education. And I was so happy because immediately after the education, they started putting these things into practice, and immediately we're seeing that it was effective in having the babies to come out vaginally versus having to go for a C-section.
Mm. So you influenced change almost immediately.
Yes. Yes, I
Oh,
was
wow.
so thrilled, so happy. In the Dominican Republic, the C-section rate is, from my understanding, the highest in the world, which is 64%.
Wow.
It should be at least under 35. And so I'm taking a team there. We're going in March, and we're gonna go out and do a lot of education. This will be education to nurses, education to residents, education to high school students who are pursuing nursing, and education to the mothers. So we're trying to reach, at least in the medical field, these nurses who are going to be seeing the patients, or, and future patients of years to come, and start re-emphasizing this training or this teachings to help to reduce rates. So this will be our first trip going to Dominican Republic. This will be the first team, and I'm hoping to have a team every year, but if I could have 2 teams a year, one in the spring, one in the fall, that'll be great as well. Ghana, the program I have set up for that is year round. Anyone who's interested, that are in the medical field or like a student towards the medical field, can reach out through the website and apply, and they can volunteer in Ghana. This is a year-round volunteer open season type of thing. It's not like spring or fall. And they'll go out, they'll volunteer, and they can also do some education and training, which is something that we would actually have a conversation about and design. Also, in country, I have a midwife who is leading a maternal infant child health task force. She has brought a couple other midwives underneath her who are they're planning to do training, re-emphasizing the training that we have brought there. There are 16 health districts in Ghana. So the plan is to start with one health district, and by 3 to 5 years have completed the training throughout all the 16 health districts, in order to reduce C-section rates, which in turn helps reduce risk for postpartum hemorrhaging, postpartum infection, which are like the highest things for Ghana, and then preeclampsia, which is a hypertension syndrome in pregnancy that can be very severe to the point that a woman can die either in the pregnancy or post-pregnancy. So we're educating on that as well. It's a lot.
Wow. There's a lot. That's good. That's amazing that God is using you to do all these great things. If someone wanted to donate, they do that on the website too?
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
it's midwifevolunteer.org. They can go there to donate. Yeah.
And well, I thank you again, Stephanie, for coming on. I hope that the mission continues to run strong. I'll continue to tell people about your mission, and hopefully God gives you favor as you continue. I know, like, when God puts something in your heart, that one beautiful thing is he does give you favor. Like, I felt like this was put into my heart to do this
Yeah.
podcast, and it's not something that I wrote down on my list this year. I did, however, write down on my list that I want to be prepared to move abroad in case that opportunity comes up.
Okay.
And I noticed that one thing God does with me is he always takes me through some experiences and things to prepare me for what the end goal is, but it never looks like I don't know if this podcast is something I'm supposed to do because it's gonna lead me to where I'm supposed to be or where he ultimately needs me to be. So as I've gotten older and I've matured spiritually, I'm like, okay, sometimes I feel in my spirit to do something that's completely out of scope, completely off brand for me. Not something I even thought I wanted to do or written
Yeah.
down, but you just feel it in your heart.
Yes.
Then once you actually step your toe in the water and you start to walk in the direction he's leading you, you realize that that walk that you thought was going to be hard, it's still like a challenge, but for some reason, it's almost like everything is falling in your favor in front of you. It's like
Yeah.
that wall you were supposed to climb, all of a sudden, there's something that takes you over the wall. Like, you had to get over the wall, but you just glided over so easily.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's where I am right now with the podcast and where I am spiritually. So, I look forward to seeing where it takes me. But I think you again. I'm gonna stop the recording
Okay.
real quick and then say thank you personally for joining.